In today's video, we're going to look at ways to communicate effectively if you have an avoidantly attached partner. Now, this is going to be really important because if you're in a relationship with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, it can be very difficult to talk to them about emotional issues and any problems that you might be having in their relationship. So we're going to look at why it can be so difficult to communicate with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, what we're trying to achieve, and then we're going to look at the top tips to help you really have an effective communication style with your avoidantly attached partner. And that should help improve every aspect of your relationship. So let's dive straight in. First of all, let's look at why it's so difficult to communicate with someone who has an avoidant attachment style. If your partner has an avoidant attachment style, they're probably very uncomfortable with conversations about emotions, especially conversations where you're saying that you're not very happy with something or that something that they've done has hurt you. So we're trying to make sure that they're able to hear that rather than having their natural reactions. Quite often, their natural reactions to those difficult emotional conversations, first of all, might be to pull back and to emotionally withdraw. So they'll only be talking to you on an intellectual level and not engaging with anything emotional at all. Sometimes they might actually literally walk away from the conversation. They might also tell you that you're being too clingy for bringing up an emotional topic. Now, this doesn't mean that they're right. You're probably not being too clingy, and certainly you should be able to bring up emotional topics without being accused of being clingy. So I don't want you to think that when you're dating someone who is avoidantly attached, that you just have to put up with that. It's really important that you know where your limits are. However, what we're trying to do is come up with ways that you can have a conversation with them without them feeling that this is the kind of behavior that they need to do to feel safe. Another factor for someone who's got an avoidant attachment style is they might not know what their emotions are. They're so used to packaging up their emotions and putting them away in a little box marked "Do Not Disturb" that when you're trying to talk to them about an emotional topic, they just can't tell you how they feel because they don't know. Another thing that we really want to avoid is we don't want them to just listen and nod and almost pretend that they're engaging in the conversation, give you all the answers that you're looking for, but without actually having understood and processed what you're saying and without really making a commitment to work with you to resolve whatever problem you're bringing up. As we start to look at some of the tips to help you communicate better with an avoidantly attached partner, it's really important that you bear in mind that it is not your job to manage them. It is not your job to manage their emotions and to adapt yourself so that they don't have to deal with their avoidant attachment. You are responsible for your own welfare, and it's okay that you're going to try and adjust to make life easier for them, but please don't think that this is your job or that this is your responsibility or that somehow you have to do this. This is a choice you're making, and it's okay to sometimes decide that you just want to communicate how you communicate and the results are whatever they are. That's okay, and that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Here's how to get the best results that you're looking for. The first thing to do is really choose your time carefully. What are you doing? Have you got time to have this conversation? Choosing the time to have an important conversation about your relationship is essential if you're going to get the right result. So no one, whether they've got an avoidant attachment style or not, is going to be open to having a really important conversation about the future of your relationship while you're both sitting in the car and you're 2 minutes away from a friend's birthday party. It's just not the right time. So make sure that you both feel safe and secure and that you've got plenty of time so that neither of you is feeling rushed. When it comes to helping someone who is avoidantly attached to really feel safe and secure, it's important that you remember that what makes you feel safe and secure might not be the same as what leaves them feeling safe and secure. So try to make sure that you really understand what they're looking for. You might feel that being in your own space is where you feel safe and secure, and they must be the same. So you'd suggest that you have the conversation at their house so that they feel like they can be confident and safe and they can open up emotionally. But for someone who's got an avoidant attachment style, they might feel like having someone in their space is already a little bit of a challenge. They're already feeling a little bit threatened because there's someone else who's closer to them than they're entirely comfortable with. And then you start to bring an emotional conversation on the top of it. It's not to say don't have the conversation at their house, but actually maybe talk about where you're going to have important relationship conversations. Where do they feel safe? What's the best way for them? But really consider where and when you're having these conversations. Because if you get that wrong, nothing else is going to matter. The next tip for having a successful conversation with someone who has an avoidant attachment style is to really use your I statements. So I statements or I feel statements are literally that. It's where you say, I feel. Rather than telling them, you made me angry, you say, I feel angry when. Rather than saying, oh, you don't respect me, I feel disrespected. It changes the emphasis. It helps the other person to feel less personally attacked. And remember, someone who's avoidantly attached is very, very vigilant for feeling social pressure, guilt trips, and feeling personally attached. So as well as using your I statements, it actually helps a lot if you mean it. An I statement is about taking responsibility for your feelings. No one else can make you feel angry. It's I felt angry when. You're responsible for your own feelings and showing your partner, your avoidantly attached partner, that this is how you feel and that you understand that you're responsible for your feelings, but you're also telling them about that. And you're communicating that their actions have an impact on you. And you'll take responsibility for your part, but you need them to also take responsibility for their part. And that's something that an avoidantly attached partner will respect and appreciate. It's a huge deal. It's useful for any conversation, but for someone with an avoidant attachment style, it's absolutely essential. When you're talking to someone who has an avoidant attachment style, you need to balance being honest with not having big displays of emotion. That's a really challenging one. And this is one where there will be times that you decide for yourself that your well-being requires that you completely ignore this tip. And that is okay. That is a thing that you will sometimes have to do because you need to be honest as well as making space so that your emotions don't become too threatening to them. This means sometimes trying to process some of your emotions before the conversation. You might talk to friends or a therapist or even a helpline if you know that you're going to have a conversation that at the moment you can't have without crying your heart out. Your avoidantly attached partner is going to find it really difficult to deal with a huge display of emotion. Even if that's difficult for you, you need to find a common ground and you need to find a way to balance so that both of you get what you need. And the easiest way to get support and change from your avoidantly attached partner is that you need to have a little bit of control over your emotions. Now, that should never mean that you hide your emotions. It just means that the conversation with your partner might not be the time for you to first express it. So try to balance that. Honesty is hugely important. Telling them, I'm angry about this, absolutely fine. And you should and you will do that. But throwing things or big displays of emotion are just going to be too much for your avoidantly attached partner. Similarly, it's really important that you know what you want out of this conversation and that you say it. And sometimes it can help to lead with that, because one of the things that someone who's got an avoidant attachment style can sometimes struggle with is when their partner wants to express a huge amount of emotion and the avoidantly attached partner is there saying, well, what do you want me to do with this? And you may have heard them say exactly those words. What do you want me to do with this? Because they want to make you happy. They want you to get what you need. They want you to get what you want out of this relationship. But they are, at that point, overwhelmed by your emotions and possibly some of theirs. Remember, this is someone who will happily put their emotions into a box. And you're just giving them more than a box worth of emotion. They don't really know what to do with it. So starting from, I would like us to talk about this, I would like to explain how I feel about this, and then I would like us to put together some suggestions afterwards about something that will help both of us to deal with this in a way that feels natural and feels okay for both of us. That gives them a framework to then understand where the conversation is going to go and to feel like there's an end. Because to someone who's got an avoidant attachment style, sometimes conversations about emotions, they're just there like a rabbit in a headlight. Okay, how do I make this finish? And it's really important that you give them the sense that this is going to end at some point. Having said that, it's important that you know what you need and you express it. It's also important that you don't try to imagine what their response is going to be and to have really strong expectations around their response. And you probably do this, most of us do, I know I do, is if I've got a difficult conversation coming up, I'll sit there and I'll rehearse it in my head. So I'll try and create a script. And I'll try and come up with what the other person might say, any arguments they might have. And the trouble is, they never stick to the script. So I rehearse it to try and make me feel safe, but actually, when it comes to talking to the other person, my script doesn't work. With someone who's got an avoidant attachment style, they're also not going to stick to the social script. There are certain social scripts, certain ways that we just anticipate that everyone's going to respond. So if you start crying, we just assume that anyone around you would give you a hug. That's a normal social script for a lot of societies anyway. But if someone has an avoidant attachment style, they might not stick to that script. So trying not to have a set of expectations and just being willing to accept that their response is unknowable before you start, and operating on the basis of, I'm just going to have to wing this conversation because I don't know what's going to go on with them, is going to really help you to not feel hurt that they're not doing the things that you thought they were going to do. Going back to our previous point, if there's something you really want them to do, like give you a hug, you're going to have to ask for it explicitly with words. For a lot of people who have an avoidant attachment style, one of the things they really dislike about emotional conversations or difficult conversations is the feeling of being ambushed. They feel like they haven't had a chance to prepare. It can almost feel like you're not having the opportunity to put on a little bit of emotional armor, not being able to create an emotional safe space for yourself before the conversation starts. And obviously, if you're the one instigating the conversation, you know it's coming. But it's useful for you to communicate that to your avoidantly attached partner, because then they know what's coming, they can feel safe, and they can prepare themselves to be a little bit more emotionally open. Now, saying, we need to talk, is not ideal. No one likes receiving that. No one likes to hear that. And especially if you're talking in person, if you say, I would like us to have a conversation about this, but not right now, I want you to have a chance to prepare, most of us are going to say, no, we'll have it now. Because, again, there's a little bit of social pressure to do that, but also that reduces the anxiety. So try messaging through text, but be a little bit more specific about what you want to say. Because, again, the more specific you are, the more you're going to reduce their anxiety. Try saying something like, I'd like us to talk about this topic soon, and I just wanted to give you a heads up. It's not necessarily going to be a big deal, but I think it's something that we could benefit from discussing together. Or, I'd like to work with you on this. Those allow someone to prepare for a conversation and know what's about to happen, but without feeling the pressure to make it an immediate conversation. So do give them a heads up. It'll work wonders. Fundamentally, talking to a partner who has an avoidant attachment style is about enforcing your boundaries and respecting theirs at the same time. It's going to be a balancing act, but I have faith that you can do it. If you use these tips, you're going to find that actually your avoidantly attached partner is able to open up, feels safe, feels respected, and you can actually talk about the things that are bugging you without there needing to be a huge crisis or a drama. So, how did that work for you? Let me know in the comments if you have a fantastic conversation or if it all blows up in your face. Either way, I'd love to know how it works out for you. And if you have any other tips that I haven't thought of, please do mention them. Let me know. I love hearing that sort of thing. And in the meantime, do like and subscribe.